Welcome to the office. It's Lagos Talks 91.3, 31 minutes past the hour of 4. This is episode number 4 on the office, and it only happens at Lagos Talks 91.3 with CIPM. We already know. And this is great because today's topic is one that is very relatable to everybody. It's very gender sensitive at the same time, and it's going to be a great conversation because this isn't talked about enough as it should be. I'm just giving you hints here and there, but let's talk about our guests today. They're the most special people in the house today. We have Mr. Patrick Umo-Adiasung. He's the Director, People Experience and Marketing Development of CIPM. He's an experienced business transformation and HR leader, consummate in the areas of talent management and organizational development. Now, he has proven expertise in integrated talent management, HR analytics, HRIS management, HR labor, regulatory compliance, amongst others. He holds an LLB in law and is currently running a specialist MBA in human resources management. It goes a whole lot further, but let me stop here. We have yet another guest in the house. We have Madam Faith Akintunde. She is the HR professional partner at UAC Foods Limited. Faith Akintunde is a value-driven HR expert with over 14 years work experience spanning financial services, oil and gas servicing, and manufacturing industry. An emotionally intelligent management coach with a passion for optimal performance and excellent execution. She delivers value-added services with focus on continuous improvement across the HR value chain as talent acquisition, onboarding management, performance management, strategic HR management, and industrial relations. As you can imagine, it goes a whole lot further, but again, we will stop here for now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the studio. Good evening.
Good evening, Michelle. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
It's nice to see you. We have Madam Faith. Good evening, Madam Faith. Great to... All right. It's nice to meet you too. So today we'll be talking about sexual harassment in the office. Dun, dun, dun. It isn't talked about enough. It's like a hush topic. Some people feel sexually harassed but do not have the guts to speak up. Maybe they do have the guts, they just don't know how to go about it. You know, ignorance sometimes can mislead people. So we have the right people here to take us through this topic because I'm sure as an employer or as an employee, this concerns you as well. So we have to define things first of all before we go into the conversation proper. Of course, we will take some calls from those who are listening. To do that, you can call the phone lines or send us a message via WhatsApp 0809 234 5913. 0809-234-5913. Let's speak to Mrs. Faith. Yes. What is sexual harassment? First of all, what is your own definition of sexual harassment?
So, I think that sexual harassment, in my opinion or in my definition, would be some sort of sexual gestures that are unsolicited. As long as it's unsolicited, is unwanted, it can be termed as harassment. And if it is sexual in nature, especially if it's got to do with maybe your gender, so it could be either male to female or female to male. Interestingly, a lot of us are biased towards the direction of, or if it's sexual harassment, it's got to do with the male folks to or against the female folk. I was having a conversation earlier today, and the person was responding to me with the intention that it was more focused around women. So the moment you talk about sexual harassment, you think that, it's only women that are sexually harassed. But from both dimensions or all the dimensions of gender that we have, as long as it is sexual and it is unsolicited, then we can actually term it sexual harassment.
All right, thank you. Now, one thing that you hear what you think when you hear about sexual harassment, people think sometimes it has to be always be verbal. But you also said gestures. It's very important as well because sometimes people see these gestures as, okay, you haven't really done anything yet. But even some gestures can be, termed as trespassing your boundaries. So it can go for both genders. Thank you for starting off on that note. So we all know it concerns everybody here. What can someone do if they're being sexually harassed? What can they do? Let's hear from Mr. Udo.
Okay. So, very interesting. So I'd say three things. If you notice or you feel sexually harassed, so the first thing you should do is document. Maybe my legal background is coming to bear here, but there's this saying in law that he who asserts must prove. So it's very, very important in any sexual harassment claim that the victim must have proof. So it's easier to document if, like Faith has already laid the foundation that harassment doesn't necessarily need to be, it could be verbal, it could be non-verbal, it could be, as simple as sending pornographic materials that are unsolicited or unwanted. That could amount to sexual harassment. So the first step I would advise is document. You need proof.
Right.
If it was a verbal occurrence, you could follow up with an email that says, hey, you did this XYZ at XYZ time, and I did not like it, or I do not consent to such actions. So this is very necessary in building a case around sexual harassment. Of course, without bringing the gender card, of course, there have been many cases of people who have been falsely accused of sexual harassment, and they've been stigmatized for the rest of their careers. So it's very important that this document, you just have a trail of documentary evidence to back up your claim. Then the next thing you do in such a situation is look at the context. So when I say context, does your organization have a sexual harassment policy? So what are the processes? Who do you escalate it to? What's your first port of call with regards to escalation? Again, when you look at the context, it's important to look at the culture of the organization towards sexual harassment. And then finally, take action. Take action. Bring HR in on it. Speak up. First thing in taking action is tell the harasser to stop. Faith already defined sexual harassment as unwanted. So you need to establish that this conduct is unwelcome. Without the victim communicating their lack of consent, it becomes difficult to establish sexual harassment. Tell the harasser to stop. If the harasser continues after he's been told to stop, then you have a clear case of sexual harassment. Secondly, talk to HR. Follow your due process for grievance and escalations laid down within the organization. And if you're not satisfied, hey, get a lawyer. Go public. I mean, there's several cases out there where harassers who did not get justice within the organizations had to go public, and action definitely had to take place. So those are my three points on what you can do if you find yourself in a situation where you've been harassed sexually at work.
All right, thank you. You talked about, first of all, you have to document, and then you have to speak up. You have to also tell the person to stop. Very important. All right, let's talk about speaking up, because I think that's where the problem is, because some people really do not like talking about their sexual harassment experience because people stigmatize. It's not just the people, or it's not just the perpetrators that are stigmatized. The victims also get stigmatized. When they hang around other people, they start doing, I beg you, this girl, we don't go report this one. I beg, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to near you before you report me. So it just makes the working environment very uncomfortable for such individual. They don't want every other person in the office to know what happened between these two people. So how can the HR professional secure a victim who's willing to speak out against any sexual harassment experience in the office? What can they do? What steps can they take to make sure that when they file these complaints, people at work or their colleagues do not know about this?
Okay, so I take that. I think first of all, HR has got to build trust in the people. The challenge that people do have is that trust that I went to report this to HR and then it blew up and all that. So if you have HR that you actually can trust, so I'll maybe just set an instance. Some times ago in my past career life, an employee reported another employee to me saying, "Oh, this my boss is making certain gestures to me, towards me that I don't like. And I had to ask, okay, what are your evidences? Of course, the person went back to say, okay, if this happened again, I'm going to record, I'm going to let you know.
Okay.
She did that. And when she did that, I asked her to send to me. Now, this was an organization where there was no framework for such incidences that, okay, or if you've got sexual harassment case, this is step by step. But even if that doesn't exist, the responsibility is on HR to protect the employee from being stigmatized. I took up that conversation with the harasser, and I had a conversation with him saying, this employee feels this way, and I would like to find out what are your interactions with this person. I was like, oh, he was like, really? He didn't even have a glimpse of that. He actually didn't think that he was harassing this person or that the person felt harassed. Having that conversation with him, I had to say, see, the next time you want to have a meeting with this person, it's important that you have a meeting in an open place. Don't call for a meeting in an hotel where, of course, their model was that they would meet in hotels, they would have conversations, and it wasn't just one-to-one. There were, groups of colleagues. But then he wasn't aware that he was harassing this employee. But after that conversation, and I made him promise that you would not take this against this person, you wouldn't victimize this person. I think 4 years down the line, let's say 2 years down the line, they still work together. Okay. And I asked to check with the employee, did anything of such happen again? And of course, the person said no. Now, this is not a perfect scenario, right? It might not be what would happen every now and then, but the responsibility still lies with HR and the leadership of the organization to create the right atmosphere, the framework, the culture of trust, like Patrick had mentioned earlier on, so that even when people feel, afraid of complaining, they would find someone they could still talk to. Even if they think that, if I go public, it's going to be an issue, there would be somebody that they could talk to.
All right. Nice. Right. Now, this might sound very unpopular. It's an unpopular position of mine that I want to talk about. So we've talked about the fact that it can either be from male to female or from female to male. But what happens when you feel sexually harassed by someone of your own gender? That's a big deal. That happens. Sometimes women group other women. One of them I think is a joke, though. That's why they're doing it. Or a man could actually group another man. I don't know how that would turn out. But these are things that still happen within the office or in a work environment. How do you sort that out? How do you go to the HR and say, I don't like the way BC grouped me today? HR will probably say, BC, stop it now. Don't do that again. And that's where it ends. But, I don't know. Have you ever had a case like that before?
Okay, so let me take a stab at that. I really like Faith's definition of sexual harassment because it was gender neutral. And I'll just reiterate that. It says any form of unwanted sexual conduct. So that definition in and of itself is gender neutral. So whatever you might ask what kind of conduct would be sexual harassment and what kind of conduct would not amount to sexual harassment. But so long as the conduct borderlines around the definition of sexual harassment, it is immaterial whether the conduct is coming from a same gender or a different gender. Furthermore, we do live in Lagos State is a very multicultural environment where people of different orientations, where you could find people of different orientations. Let's look at a hypothetical scenario where this is a multinational organization where you have people from different, probably expatriates from different countries that have different nuances, different orientations with regards to sexuality that probably do not sit well with our own culture here in Nigeria. So in those scenarios, you would have, people of same gender maybe making certain overt actions that probably do not sit well with you. Again, what do you do? Tell the harasser, hey, this conduct doesn't sit well with me. Stop. At that point, after you've communicated, if the harasser, quote and unquote harasser, continues with that conduct, then it becomes harassment, especially of a sexual nature. So back to your question, Can it happen between people of the same gender? Yes, it can. So I think that's the short answer. I've also given the long one as well.
All right, thank you. Let's take it back to CIPM. Does CIPM have a complaints channel? If I'm unable to resolve it within the office space, can I reach out to CIPM to be there for me?
Okay, so first answer, yes.
Okay.
CIPM has 2 channels. The first channel is very interesting. We have a committee of counsel called the Ethics and Mediation Committee. Now, this is going to be very useful if the harasser happens to be a HR professional. So if any HR professional does any conduct, not just sexual, but any conduct that is unprofessional or doesn't sit well with the ethos of our profession as HR professionals, you could report that particular professional to the CIPM, and then the Ethics and Mediation Committee would, conduct a fair hearing. And if the outcome of the hearing implicates the HR professional, then we have a disciplinary process for such HR professionals. Furthermore, the CIPM, by our charter, is empowered by law to set up what we call a tribunal. Tribunal will be more or less like, I would like to say, your court of first instance. So you can escalate labor-related matters, in this case sexually related, in case of sexual harassment, to the CIPM tribunal. We're still setting it up, it's still work in progress, but by charter we are empowered to set up that tribunal. Work is in progress to finalize the setup of the tribunal. Once that is done, then we have a first port of call for labor-related issues. So I think that...
Can we trust the CIPM to not be biased in cases like this when a victim reports to the CIPM?
Of course, our integrity as professionals are at stake. So clearly, we have a code of conduct which every HR professional subscribes to, and we do not take kindly to any violation or any infraction of the CIPM code of conduct. So please be rest assured that the CIPM will not treat it with kids' gloves.
All right. So how can HR handle sexual harassment reports where the MD or CEO is the alleged harasser? The owner of the company, the oga patakpata or the madam patakpata. What do you do? Because then it's like,
Yeah, tough one. Very, very tough one. Because in this case, we're talking about the breadwinner, quote and unquote, the person that pays the HR salary, that pays everyone else's salary. First of all, I would request that HR professionals work towards having alternatives first. Because if you do not have an alternative, you will be forced to not be able to do anything. Because you'll be afraid of losing your maybe only means of income or only means of livelihood. If that is in place, the courage to take a stand against things like this would be up there in any way. Secondly, HR professionals should be ready to actually take a walk when things like this happen, because when you're ready to take a walk, you know that you're going to do your best to make sure that this person is protected or this person gets justice. So if such an incident has happened or an employee is reporting this kind of situation, you would be able to sort of seek redress for this employee. You will be able to coach or counsel the employee, first of all, like Patrick has said, to confront the harasser, to say, this I don't like. I'm not happy with this and I don't want it. If that continues, the HR would step in to say, oh, sir, this employee reported this to HR and we think that this is not, it's not in the best interest of the company and all of that. If it doesn't stop, then this is where the HR would escalate to authorities outside the organization. That's why I said HR should be ready to take a walk from the job, because in such situations, a lot of people stay in abusive relationships, even abusive employment relationships, because they do not have alternatives. And if HR is not also there to help them or fight for them, eventually you have double victim in one incident, as it were. So it's important that we have, as HR professionals, have that ability to be able to take a stand and say, no, this is not right, and I'm going to fight this to whatever level that I can fight it. And we should also be informed. In some cases, it might not result to taking a walk, really. If you do have evidences against this person and you're saying, these are the evidences, it's either you stop or we do this or we do this. Worst case is going to say, I'm going to sack you. And if he sacks me, I'm going to sue. Because it's now clear that I have evidences, and the reason why I'm putting this forward is because I have evidences. You are abusing an employee just because for whatever reason. So HR still holds that staff of responsibility to say this is what the protocol is. And if I make a reference to the conduct of CIPM, the code of conduct, there is a part of the code of conduct that says that I should actually be ready to resign in a situation where I need to uphold the ethics of the praxis.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Can I just add a little?
Yes, because we have to take some calls. I'm sure our listeners have lots of questions too.
Yeah, in addition to everything Faith has said, HR can try to train. So many times, some people do not even know what amounts to sexual and what amounts to sexual harassment. Some actions may be done naively, and they may be unaware. So it's important for employees to ensure everybody is trained. I mean, I would suggest HR trains everybody across board on sexual harassment, what amounts to sexual harassment, what doesn't amount to sexual harassment. Something else that can be done, empower bystander intervention. So HR can also empower bystanders to intervene. So somebody walks into Oga's office and, you hear a yelp or a scream, everybody should be bold enough to knock on the door. Hey, Grace, is everything okay in there? So, that's why I say empower bystander intervention. A lot of times, these sort of occurrences happen where there is no interference from anyone else. So these are just some additions to what Faith has already said that could be done by HR. Yeah,
this is very, very revealing, and it's very educative as well. Thank you both so much. So what actions are not considered sexual harassment? Let's talk about that as well. We already know what sexual harassment is. What isn't sexual harassment? Because some people have it confused. They might start thinking, this guy or this lady talked to me. Were they sexually harassing me? Now I know, but we need to also clear it out so people do not think every gesture that isn't sitting well with them automatically means it's sexual harassment.
Well, I as long as it is not sexual in nature or not sexually suggestive, I would say it is not sexual. But then, that the world is so empowered with the social media, and your perception has somewhat become reality. So even if there is a concept that says, oh, this is not sexual, if you feel it is sexual, I mean, for instance, someone gives you a compliment that, oh, you look great today, right? I don't see that as sexual. But I've also had a situation where a line manager reported to me saying their line reports, their associate paid them a compliment and they didn't find it funny. Yes. So when that conversation happened, I was like,
wow.
Okay, so help me understand what actually came off to you in this conversation. The person said, oh, he said it the other time, and we were having a team meeting, and then he said, oh, madam, you look great today. Madam, you dress well today. And this person is male, is an associate. This is the boss feeling harassed based on this person's compliment.
Constant compliment.
Just constant compliment. So again, it's a very sensitive conversation, really, but we also have to be careful, like Patrick has said, to orient people properly. Certain gestures might just be, genuine and sincere without sexual intentions. Sometimes when we confront these gestures and hold a proper conversation around it, we might even be able to find out if this was meant to be sexual or not. So I wouldn't want to put the old definition into a box to say, oh, this is sexual, this is not sexual. But I would like to encourage that people should also keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. Because, as good as someone patting you on the back, someone might feel it's an harassment and somebody else might feel, oh, it's not a big deal.
All right. I think now we should take some calls because we've spoken about sexual harassment in different ways. I also have more questions, but I'd love to hear from our listeners who may want to contribute to the program, maybe share a short experience with us and maybe ask a question. The phone lines are 0809 191 3913, 0809 222 0913 or 0809 234 5913. Call the landline numbers as well on 01515 01515 Let's hear from you. But how about companies or organizations without any sexual harassment policy? Where do you start? Hold that thought. Let's take this call first. Lagos Talks, good evening.
Hello, Michelle. Good evening.
Hello, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Kennedy calling.
Kennedy, go ahead. 30 seconds.
Please, I want to ask the lady there. Where I was working before, I was relieved of my job because for a crime that I did not commit. And the HR was very well aware of it. But do you know what she told me after she left the place? She told me that she did what she did because she wanted to protect her job. That I know that it's a one-man business and she doesn't have any other place she's going to work. In a case like that, what would such a person do?
Wow, that's a good question. We'll take many calls so that we can address all of them at once. Lagos Talks, good evening.
Good evening, Michelle.
Hello, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm Moses. I'm calling from Tojo.
All right, Moses, go ahead. Keep it very short.
Yes, good evening. I want your guest to I think, expatiate on this part. What if the abuse is coming from, let me call it abuse, is coming from the HR himself or herself?
Okay.
What is the solution?
All right, thank you. We answered that already. Lagos Talks, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Well, my name is Ayo.
All right, Ayo, let's hear you.
I'm calling from Festa.
All right, go ahead. Ayo, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Good afternoon once again. I just wanted to ask a question. What happens when the person is making eye contact and everything to you? So how do you say, oh, this is an evidence? How do you get an evidence to show that you're being harassed? And there's always the face thing, the lip smacking and all. How do you get that as an evidence?
All right, good question. Let's address them very quick. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me start from the most recent one. How do you address conduct that's not documented? So reports, document it. So
that can't be documented.
That can't be, yes. So make a report. Hey, Charles. Sorry for all the Charles out there. You know, hey Charles, could you stop your leering looks? Hey, Charles, I do not like those cat calls or those whistles you make when I walk past.
Or the comments.
Or I do not appreciate XYZ comments you made. I heard those comments, and you've communicate your lack of consent to that particular kind of conduct. Communicate it in a written format. Once that is done, you have documentary evidence.
So it has to be done in a written format.
It must
that
be.
way it is documented. So if you do not like any sort of attention you're getting from a woman or a man in the office space, send them an email telling them you do not like what they continuously do. That way you have an evidence, is well documented, and it's official at the same time. Thank you for that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'd like to add, right? I think that in this side of the world, as it were, maybe Africans, Nigerians, Lagosians, sometimes we shy away from having difficult conversations. If I feel that someone is harassing me with this, for instance, this lady mentioned, eye contact, the lips marking and all that. First, I would maybe, if I would get those frames that do have lenses or recording lenses, I'd wear them and I'd have a conversation with this person saying, I notice you give me this eye contact and sometimes you smack your lips. What really, are you trying to tell me something? So if the person says, oh, sorry, I didn't intend to, I wasn't meaning anything, that's clear. Now, let's say he actually intended something, or you had an intention and you had a conversation and he denies it. The next time he may not want to do it because he knows that now you've paid attention to it. But a flip side is you have that conversation and he says, oh, indeed, I actually like you. And you're wearing that frame that has somewhat of something that can record. You have the evidence already. All right. And then you come back to say, oh, I have this evidence and I'm not interested and I wouldn't want to go ahead. So sometimes we just have to find beyond the other ways of maybe putting it to writing, because now this is my writing and I'm saying, I noticed this, I don't like it. And the person writes to deny and all that. That's the end. Again, that also stops it. So some form of documentation
is needed.
Is actually required.
So let's talk about the HR that also left the company and said, oh, well, I was trying to protect my job. That's why I couldn't protect you, even though I knew you were being framed for a crime you did not commit. We'll have to wrap up in 1 minute. So what is your response to that?
Well, I find that unfair, even though I know that a lot of HR people do certain practices because they want to protect their job. And part of the changes we're trying to bring into this practice is empowering HR people to be able to take a stand to say, this is the right practice. This is the ethics of professionalism, as it were. Again, CIPM is doing a lot of work and putting frameworks in place to protect HR people.
I was going to say that
and
too.
Also encourage HR people to speak up.
Right.
We hold a lot of conversation on various platforms. HR people have got to gain the courage to speak up. Either you're speaking up to the HR community, you're speaking up to the CIPM, saying this is what's happening in my place. I need advice, I need interventions. Some people get help with that.
Wow.
All right. May I just quickly add?
No, sorry, we have to wrap up the show. But thank you so much for coming in. It's already 4 minutes past the hour of 5. We had Mr. Patrick Umo-Adiasung here in the studio and Miss Faith Akintunde. Time isn't enough. The phone lines are still buzzing. This is a conversation that resonates with loads of people, but hopefully we'll have this conversation again. Remember, The Office comes on every Thursday from 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. You do not want to miss it because we talk about interesting stuff like this. It only happens at Lagos Talks 91.3. Coming up next is Critical Thinking. Don't go anywhere.
We are Lagos Talks 91.3. Let's